What's going on, guys? Today we're gonna be back here with another video. UIC is in a week at the time I'm recording this, so I thought it would be good to try to review some gameplay, try to see what we can improve on, see what we can do better. Obviously, because you can always improve in this game. And luckily at Toronto, I played Fede on the side stream here, so I know a lot of people probably didn't see it. It's a very interesting match, to say the least, judging by the thumbnail I'll probably do for this one. But yeah, Fede, just some background, NAIC champion, most recently regional champion as well, just a really strong player from Italy, one of the best players in the world. And it's very scary, but we have some history. I played him online first in a couple of VRs, and then played him at Worlds 24, where I won, and then I've just played him online a bunch. I think this might be our second time playing in person. Doesn't happen too often, just because I'm an NA player. He's from EU, so the only time it's really gonna happen is like for big internationals, worlds. But yeah, Toronto seemed to be like a really cheap flight for him, so he ended up coming here, and I get to play like one of the premier players with my team here. So yeah, let's start off with the teams. Unfortunately, they don't preview the teams for the side stream one, so I'm gonna have to do that here, which I have up here. So yeah, my team here is really centered around the Dragon Knight here and the Urshifu, and then it uses Pow as a supporting attacker, and then you have 3 support pieces to round out the team. The main idea is that you have a lot of fast priority options to damage things quickly and win damage trades really easily. Right, Dragon Knight's always very oppressive on the team sheet with Qian Pao. Just a strong combo for almost the entirety of Scarlet and Violet now, since I think I've been using it since literally like the first day Scarlet and Violet was dropped and it was available on Pokemon Showdown. I was using Dragon Knight Qian Pao. I thought it was like such a cool concept. I love Dragon Knight, so and Qian Pao has quickly become my favorite Pokemon. So it's just really fun for me. Yeah, and then these two really struggle into stuff that can slow them down, like Incineroar, and that type of stuff. So Urshifu pairs really well with them because Urshifu is not slowed down by Intimidate, mainly because of Surgeon Strikes, right? You hit their Protect, which is really good when you're damage trading, right? Kind of swings things in your favor, because if Urshifu is hitting through Protect, your opponent's kind of incentivized not to protect as much, which is going to benefit every other mon on your team, especially when you're moving first with priority. So yeah, and then Rillaboom also is very nice with these guys. It gives you terrain control, gives you Fake Out to control the tempo of the game. You get another priority with Grassy Glide here, another bulky piece. And then the next one I added was Fluttermane. The team kind of struggles into a lot of archetypes, or at least these 4 I thought were really good on paper and had a lot of potential, because you chip everything down, right? And then Dragon Knight can just come in the back and E-Speed, or you can E-Speed early, put on a bunch of offensive pressure, and then you have like other threats in the back that it's just really hard for a lot of teams and opponents to navigate and kind of slow you down. So I added Fluttermane as extra insurance versus a lot of like setup teams, right? Like Taunt is super good. Thunder Wave to slow stuff down. Icy Wind. Thunder Wave, sorry, but pairs extremely well with Rock Slide here, and Icicle Crash for pair flinch chances, which I think is really good. You're kind of swinging the game in your favor. Icy Wind is really good, like speed control that affects both sides of the board. So double speed control here, and then obviously Moonblast is just great. Opted for Terra Grass just because it's not that bulky, so you want to be able to take multiple hits from the common priority moves in the format, from like Thunderclap, right, and then like Aqua Jet, Grassy Glide from Rillaboom, and Ogerpon, which is really important here. And then we have Arcanine Hisui, which is going to pair well with the rest of the team, because you see that Fire, Water, Grass core is immune to Intimidate as well, and then adds extra priority with Extreme Speed. It's a really nice piece. But unfortunately, we pull a matchup that's not so great here. Of Fede, right? We'll go to his team here, and it's going to be a lot of things that my team is just really not going to like to see, right? So first of all, we have Ndidi female with Rocky Helmet, so it's going to slow down all of our priority options. and it's really annoying because it has to follow me, right? And so if I'm clicking surge strikes into it, I'm taking so much recoil. And then I have to win the terrain war. It has helping hand, has trick room. If I'm trying to slow it down and I don't taunt it, then it can trick room, kind of flip the speed orders, and then I'm in an awkward spot there. And it's paired with this Iron Crown. So when you see Calm Mind, normally it's going to be booster speed, which is actually going to be like the better of the two, just because it's not doing a lot of damage immediately, which means I have a lot more pressure off the rip than, you know, the Iron Crown player does. And favorably here, it's going to be like Terror Dragon, which means it's quite easy to pin with any of my mons here, and then with Fluttermane or Chien-Pao as well. But then it also has stuff like Sash Urshifu, which can be sometimes annoying to get rid of, right? Sash mons in general are really annoying whenever you're trying to damage trade, because this team doesn't really have any spread, right? We have Rock Slide and Icy Wind. Everything else is single target, which makes it really awkward sometimes to deal with Sash mons. And Ogerpon Wellspring, right, can follow me a lot of the stuff that we want to do. It's probably going to be really bulky just based on how this team's going to operate with setting up the crown. And then obviously Water Absorb is really obnoxious for Urshifu to deal with. To add onto that, they have Landorus, which I don't really think is a piece he'll bring most of the time, right? It's just really awkward, especially when the whole matchup is probably going to be dedicated to setting up crown. Like, Landorus doesn't really fit in. And then he also has AV Ensign, which is actually like something that we rather see. Parting shots sometimes annoying for my team to deal with, and U-turns just going to be better for me in general. So yeah, just looking at the matchup, it's definitely not favorable, but there's stuff we can play around. I played this team before Toronto, like on ladder a couple times, and I played it like a similar version in USPA. So I had some lines that I could think about, but definitely nothing that was too concrete. Just additionally backstory as well. I was like super tired while playing Toronto. I think I had like 6 hours of sleep in like a span of 2.5 days, mainly just because traveling was so awful to get to Toronto. It was a huge snowstorm. I had to stay overnight at an airport, didn't really get a lot of sleep. And then the same night I stayed up super late, helping friends with their teams. And when I did get some sleep, you know, it wasn't the best. So yeah, I think that can attribute to a lot of like the plays you'll see, but at least first impressions of the matchup, right? I don't think Chien-Pao is too good. It fares really poorly into the Iron Crown mainly, and the Ensign as well. You know, redirection from Ogerpon. It doesn't really do much besides the fact that it can is a damage amp for the rest of the team. If it was Sucker Punch, you know, maybe we bring it, because then if Grassy turns up, we're pressuring a strong priority move, but we're Ice Shard, so that's not really going to be doing much. And then, so you're really left with the other 5 mons here, and Hark, once again, is also one of those mons where like you could bring it, and sometimes it's good if you can catch a certain lead, or if Fede is bringing a certain combination of mons, but it's really not going to be that good. So I'm basically kind of locked into bringing a combination of Dragonite, Rillaboom, Urshifu, Fluttermane, and then maybe Hark if I think the circumstances are correct. And then even more so, like the leads I think are very restricting, right? The main problem is that since he's booster speed, he outspeeds all of my other mons, right? But the good thing is he doesn't really have speed control on this. So Fluttermane I think is really good. It's kind of mandatory on lead. It's with Taunt, you stop a lot of the Indeedee, you stop the Ogerpon, Moonblast pressures the Urshifu, Icy Wind pressures the Iron Crown. And Thunder Wave is really obnoxious, as you're going to see here for him. And then, so yeah, I think Fluttermane is always on bring for the lead. And then the issue is kind of, I'm not going to be leading Rillaboom here, because when you're trying to win the terrain war, you normally don't want to lead off of it, unless you're trying to do some bait plays, which I'll get into, because I've looked back and I've thought about this match a lot, just because I think it's important. Spoiler, I win, but it's important to over your losses as well as your wins. You learn a lot more in your losses than you do your wins, but especially with a set like this, there's a lot more that you can optimize that I think can go under the radar, and the whole point of this game I think is to try to like optimize, and just the little things matter, and if you can make if you can fix up the tiniest of mistakes, you know, those eventually add up to the point where you're becoming a whole better player overall. So yeah, back to what I was saying. This is Fluttermane here is gonna only really be able to be led with Dragonite or Urshifu. and it's really restricting because then he has a lot of different like lead combinations, and it kind of favors him in that regard. But conversely, right, he has some limited lead combinations as well, right? He has Iron Crown, and then that's mainly going to be the main mon he's going to want to use here. And then he's kind of only able to lead it with Instant or Ogre-Pawn Wellspring. The main reason for that is you don't want to lead in DD just because then you're either losing your DD too early and giving up the terrain control, which is going to be very bad for him, or you're going to be on the back foot because then you're going to have to swap and DD out so you don't lose that terrain, you don't lose your DD. And that's going to put the tempo solely in my favor, right? That's going to be really bad for him. As we said, Landorus is not really a good bring. I think Urshifu is not really the best bring. Normally he's going to bring Indeedee, Crown, Ogre-Pawn Wellspring, and then pick from one of these two. And Urshifu out of the two is not going to be like too good, just because it's going to have to deal with a lot of like annoying stuff like Fluttermane, Rillaboom, and Dragonite, which it's not going to be able to hit too well. So yeah, that's basically like a rundown of how I think like the matchup operates in a way. So yeah, let's get right into the games here. Okay, had to move the webcam over to the other side. I think it's a bit awkward. They kind of like, I was reviewing this, they kind of just show like this screen. I'll actually go back here. They just say like will return soon, and then they just like show the names of the players who are playing, and then they just play the match. There's no casters, no build up, nothing. I will say another thing is I was talking to Fede throughout his runs just because mutual friends with him through other plays as well, and he played Jack Carr, can actually watch the set. Fede unfortunately didn't get the best of luck with Thunderwave here, so that will come into play here for our set as a little spoiler. Let's go to our set now. Okay, there we go. Okay, what's really nice as well is that you'll see it from my perspective. Turn off the music there. I think it's better to see it from my perspective, just because then I can, well, maybe it'd be better to see from his perspective, but you kind of get something from both sides. I think if you can view your opponent's perspective, it gives you a lot more insight into maybe what they're thinking. But if you're able to view your perspective as well, it's just super nice, just because you're able to kind of like run back through your mindset in a way, and like why you made certain plays that you did, because you're not always going to remember like how you felt in the moment or why you did certain plays. So yeah, back to the game. On lead here, right? This is round 7, so this is a win-in situation. We're both 5-1, and ideally you want to be going X1 or even XO in tier day 2. So this is a very important round. I'm gonna be leading Fluttermane and Urshifu, and he's gonna be leading Instant and Iron Crown. So just off, first impressions, I think that I'm completely winning on this lead. I think that it's very nice because I'm essentially forcing a fake out into Urshifu almost always, because Urshifu with Terra's Steel, it's going to resist this, the Tachyon Cutter, the Expanding Force, and his Instant's pressure to Terra or swap or go for a fake out here, and he's kind of on the back foot. And Fluttermane here has really good options to taunt the Iron Crown, to Thunderwave the Iron Crown, get Icy Winds off, maybe go for a read here of clicking Taunt into the Incineroar, which I think is a bit too much here. But yeah, key speed interactions, Fluttermane should almost always be moving for crowns, but mine is faster here. You'll see that I'm speed booster, and then we will see from Fede as well that he is speed booster as well. So in the back there, you see I have Rillaboom and Dragonite, kind of those same 4 mons that I planned on bringing. I get a lot of anytime someone watches a set of mine, I always get someone always asks like, why do I just spam buttons back and forth? It's just mainly kind of a way that I think about the game in steps through my mind, right? If I'll click moves and I won't lock them in, and then I'll go back, I'm running through lines in my head, just trying to see how they play out, and clicking the moves and then like pausing, going back, seeing what I have in the back, seeing what all my options are, helps me just really think through it that way. The initial play I have here is clicking Thunderwave into Iron Crown and protecting, just because, like I said, it protects my Urshifu from any shenanigans that he wants to go to, if he wants to double into it with Expanding Force and Flare Blitz for a pin. And then the only play that that I'm losing to is maybe if he's going for a raw swap plus protect here on Iron Crown, but that's a lot of hard to call from him and a lot of investment. So I think this is probably the best play that I can go for. Just because it keeps things relatively safe on my end. It gets me a lot of value out of the turn, landing a Thunder Wave on Crown, because it really slows it down. Even if I'm not getting the paralysis at any point through this game, just having it being slower than the rest of my Pokemon in the back is just huge for this matchup. Letting my Pokemon move first before the Crown pays off in dividends, and lets the Fluttermane do other stuff instead of having to click Icy Wind. So we're going to see he goes for Fake Out into Urshifu, and then his other options are just going to be set up a Calm Mind or go for Tachyon Cutter. See, I'll go for Thunder Wave here, which lands, thankfully. And then the Crown is now paralyzed, and then he will go for Tachyon Cutter on Fluttermane. The first one does about half, and then the second one doesn't kill me. I think it's a valid play for him to go to, just because maybe on this type of team, and especially with the Terra Grass ones, they're usually a bit frailer than anything else. They're not like the Terra Grass ones usually aren't bold, which was very common around this time. And if you don't have a lot of bulk investment, then there's good rolls that you'll die to a Tachyon Cutter here. But mine has decent bulk, so we'll live more often than not. So we'll on Fluttermane, which is going to be very nice here, and it opens up for an interesting turn 2. We got basically all we needed out of the Fluttermane. While it would be nice to land a taunt on maybe one of the Follow Me Mons or do some damage, like I said, the main important part, I think, from my perspective, was just getting the Thunder Wave down on the Iron Crown. That way I can start bringing in the other Mons and start doing some damage. So yeah, he's kind of in an awkward spot here, just because now I have a really safe double up into the Iron Crown. My Urshifu is going to be moving first. I can Moonblast and Surging Strikes it, or I can Surging Strikes the Ensign and Moonblast the Ensign. So he's kind of, both slots are really pressured here, and I'm in the driver's seat, and I still have Rillaboom and Dragonite in the back to try to see what he has. So yeah, the main idea I have here is I thought about conserving my Fluttermane, just because I thought it would be nice in the end game if he has something like Urshifu and he has the terrain control, then he can't Aqua Jet me. If he has something like Ogerpon Wellspring, conserving Fluttermane for being able to click Taunt is really important. And then if he has a DD, same thing, being able to taunt the Ndidi it would be very nice that way, my Urshifu, because the whole point is here that I'm trying to use Urshifu to KO the Iron Crown, and then Dragonite will sweep up the rest of the Mons, hopefully. So going back and forth here, just thinking about what the most beneficial play here is. Another important thing, like I said, I had played this on ladder, and the sets that I played on ladder got KO'd by a Moonblast and Surging Strikes double up, which is kind of why I go for here. But crucially, you see that I make a mistake. This is why I think it's kind of important to review, is that if he swaps to Ndidi and goes for Expanding Force, then he will just board wipe my Fluttermane and Urshifu, and the game is basically over. Now, I didn't want to Terra Steel, mainly because I was worried about a pin with the Iron Crown, Flare Blitz plus Tachyon Cutter or Expanding Force in my Urshifu. But I think that doesn't end up mattering. I think that was a lapse of judgment from the sleep, is just because if you're looking towards the end game, nothing in the back is really going to beat Dragonite from clicking Air Lace over and over again, or clicking Outrage. He probably has Ogerpon Water and Ndidi, or at least Ndidi and then Urshifu. And those are going to have a really tough time beating Rillaboom plus Dragonite in the back. Additionally, if he's going for the double up, Flare Blitz probably isn't going to kill Urshifu. Depends on his attack investment on Ensign. And then if the double up does KO Crown, then I'm in a really good spot. But if he goes for the double up on Urshifu, then he probably still needs to break the paralysis. And then if that all happens, then I'm in a really good spot where I have Fluttermane still alive. Ensign has taken some chip, and then I can bring in Dragonite for free and go from there. So yeah, that was mainly the big mistake that I think locked in my moves, and then I immediately realized, oh wow, yeah, if this isn't KO, then it's going to be like a huge issue for me. And then you'll see he swaps Ensign, so now we're in kind of the nightmare scenario where we're going to either need to either have this KO, have this double up KO, get a special attack drop on the Iron Crown. That way it doesn't KO my Urshifu with Expanding Force, or we're gonna need the Paralysis. The graphic here is kind of covering up the Paralysis symbol, but it's there. Kind of covers up the HP bars a little bit, but it looks like it does around 20 to 20, like around 20%. So Surge Strikes will need to do about 80, which is possible. We'll see based on the first roll. If it does around 80%, we're bringing it down to around half. So it looks like it will end up being some rolls, and based on the second one, it's probably just going to end up being just short, which it does. Iron Crown probably lives like 5% here. So maybe it is a damage roll, but luckily Crown will get fully paralyzed. So we kind of get, that's the first of getting bailed out there. And it's just Pokemon sometimes, you know. I think mainly it's just trying to clean up these kind of scenarios where I need to be thinking more down the line towards Terra here, because if he did get to move, then I immediately lose the game, just because he has too much pieces left compared to mine. He can play around swapping in Indeedee and Incineroar over and over again, take the terrain control back, and Dragonite from there just can't really win. Even if I did have Terra still, it would be really awkward. But yeah, luckily we will get saved by the Paralysis. And Fede, it wasn't really too happy about that. He kind of like gave a reaction. But now we're in a really interesting spot. We can swap the Rillaboom in for one of the slots and conserve our Flutter Mane. We can go for Icy Wind here on the Indeedee and Iron Crown to probably KO the Crown with Icy Wind. We can taunt the Indeedee here if it tries to set up a Trick Room. Or we can go for a Terra Steel and double up the Indeedee with a Moonblast and Surging Strikes, which will almost certainly KO. It catches the instant swapping back in here if he wants to play a terrain game. So yeah, and then we still don't know his last piece. I think this play is going to be the most neutral out of all of them. Taunt plus Protect is kind of safe. If he swaps Instant back in, then we can swap Dragonite in, and then we don't have to worry about Fake Out because we have the Psychic Terrain. It covers if Ogerpon's going to want to swap in here to maybe take its Surging Strikes. And we're not really too worried about the Iron Crown. If it KOs our Fluttermane, you know, that's a good free pivot for us. And then since Indeedee would be taunted, it can't go for Follow Me, so then the Iron Crown is just basically a dead slot from there. So yeah, we will go for Taunt Protect here, which I think is probably my best play, or one of my best plays, just to minimize the risk here. He'll actually swap the Iron Crown, interestingly enough, and then he will swap into Ogerpon. So see, that is Ogerpon last. I think our play is going to end up paying off here. I think he's just keeping Iron Crown as a potential sack, right? Having the piece in the back in order to take a hit if he wants to swap out his Ogerpon or his Indeedee or Incin. The Iron Crown's not going to do too much, but it can take a hit in order to keep another Pokemon alive. You go for the taunt on the Indeedee here, and it will get taunted. And then we see that he goes for Psychic into Urshifu, which isn't bad play, but we're definitely in a good spot here. We have Moonblast plus Surging Strikes onto Indeedee here, and we can Terra Steel, and there's not really much he can do about it. We have Taunt into Ogerpon to stop the Follow Me to redirection and Spiky Shields, making it so that our Dragonite and Rillaboom have an easier time attacking into the Ogerpon. But the game isn't 100% over, but it's definitely far in my favor. Mainly just because Dragonite's going to have a really easy time dealing with all these Pokemon, especially if I can get a Taunt down on the Ogerpon. I can get if the Indeedee goes down, right, then Outrage is just going to cleanly sweep through all the slots here, which I think is good. I think this play is not bad. I think I would have rather clicked Taunt onto Ogerpon instead of Thunderwave. The idea mainly is that my Urshifu is pretty slow, and it's likely I'm slower than his Ogerpon, so I think I wanted to get the Thunderwave down the Ogerpon. Additionally, I think that's something that you can sometimes play towards is kind of like the mental warfare of Pokemon. A lot of times it can be very frustrating when things don't go your way. RNG, it builds on top of each other, and I think that's probably what I was trying to go for in this scenario, is just trying to stack the Thunder Waves, get Fede off his game. That way it makes the game 2 or possibly game 3 even easier for me. If he's going for, you know, hard reads because he's frustrated, isn't playing at his best level, then it just makes it all that much easier. So yeah, the swap to Room I think is good, but I think I probably want to see a taunt or another swap from me here. But I think it's Thunderwave is fine as well. We are going to swap in Rillaboom here. Gives us fake out pressure on the Ogre Pawn or the Indeedee. Lets us reposition, take control of the terrain. We will see Thunderwave come out on the Ogre Pawn here. Now it is paralyzed, and then the Ogre Pawn, the Indeedee will go for Psychic now. It will do actually like a decent amount of damage. That's not nothing. And then it actually gets a special defense drop. So now if it goes for another Psychic, we'll be doing even more damage. And then next, you'll see that he will go for Ivy Cudgel onto the Rillaboom here. So now I think because we kind of didn't go for the taunt, we're in a really awkward spot here where we're not really doing that much damage to say, just because he still has Instant in the back and he can swap Incineroar in for either of these slots, weaken my weaken my Rillaboom's attack. And then Moonblast is doing some damage, but again, he has Assault Vest Incineroar, and like I said, the Ogre Pawn's probably really bulky. So he can Spiky Shield and swap Incineroar, and then he's in a really good spot, because then he still has Indeedee in the back, and then, you know, things can kind of get dicey from there. So yeah, I think either keeping in the Urshifu that turn and attacking, or just going for taunt on the Ogre Pawn as I swap probably would have been better, and advances the board state for me. The Thunder Wave just can kind of end up being meaningless here. I go for a initially try to, I think I just kind of need to double a slot here. The idea for high horsepower on the DD is it covers the Incineroar swap. I think it's likely that either the Ogre Pawn's going to swap to Incineroar or the Indeedee is going to swap to Incineroar. Now, if Ogre Pawn swaps to Incineroar, then Indeedee isn't really doing too much damage. It's doing something. It can KO or Flutter Mane, or it can do some damage thanks to the special defense drop. But then we're still in a really good spot where Dragonite or Urshifu can come in and sweep the board. So yeah, he's going to kind of do what we said, which is going to be swap Ogre Pawn here for Incineroar, which makes a ton of sense. And then drop our attack stat. Definitely a good play by him. I think another option I could have had is swap Dragonite, kind of predicting Incineroar swap. If I'm swapping in Dragonite here, it can take a Psychic, but I mean, like, Indeedee's not really going to do too much damage to my Dragonite. Additionally, Ogre Pawn only has, you know, Water or Grass moves, still not really going to be doing that much damage. So I think swapping Dragonite in would have been also another play that advances the board state. And Moonblast, one of the slots, swap Dragonite. Because then I still have the Rillaboom in the back to still maintain the terrain war, which I think is still very important and in play here. So yeah, we're going to see Moonblast go into a DD there. We get a critical hit, which is going to be very nice. If not for the crit, we probably would have been doing about, you know, around 40%. But thanks to the crit, we're doing about, you know, 60%. And then we get the special attack drop as well, which nullifies the Spadef drop on the Rillaboom. Go for a high horsepower here, eat some Rocky Helmet chip, but now that Indeedee is getting low, the game is tilting more and more in our favor, just because the Iron Crown's now low, the Indeedee is now low. The Incineroar's kind of in an awkward spot here because now I can do some swaps, and the Ogre Pawn is paralyzed, so now it's also in a bad spot. We will see Psychic bring us down to 37. Likely, if we didn't get the special attack drop, we are most certainly going down, which I think honestly wouldn't be too bad, just because then we can bring in Urshifu or Dragonite freely. So maybe actually hurts us a little bit, helps us a little bit. Indeedee's going to shake off the taunt here. Not, you know, too much to worry about there. I have a free Moonblast into the Indeedee slot here, and then Let's see what I think I end up staying in with Rillaboom for some reason, but I don't think I should. I don't 100%. Okay, I swap Urshifu. That makes 100% sense. Like, I think that, you know, maybe swapping Dragonite might have been a little better. I would be a bit worried about knockoff into the Rillaboom slot here, just because it's kind of an obvious swap. But he can also U-turn, so I think swapping to Urshifu's more neutral. Puts us in a decent spot, kind of forces a Terra out of the Incin, and by then, Rillaboom, Dragonite can freely Aerial Ace through the rest of his team. So yeah, he's going to swap in Iron Crown, like I said. He kept it alive for this sack potential here. We will Moonblast the Iron Crown. And then the Incin kind of has options where it can knock off the Rillaboom, predicting like a Dragonite swap or a swap of some sort. It can finally take out the Flutter Mane, which I think has been the bane of Fede's existence right now. It's gotten so much value. It's gotten 2 T-Waves. It's gotten the Taunt on Indeedee. It's gotten a bunch of damage through Moonblast. Takes out the Iron Crown here. And it's just made the set ultimately really, really annoying for him. We'll see that he goes for a U-turn onto the Urshifu. This makes sense. He kind of wants to keep his pivot options available. Going for a knockoff is definitely more committal, but since he sees that I swap here, now he kind of gets to play around with what he'll do, because he can now swap in the Ogerpon and then swap Incin back in for a Fake Out. So it makes 100% sense by him. Just keeping his options completely wide open to try to pull back this game, which is going to be really, really hard for him. All right, he's going to swap an Ogerpon. And then we will take our Grassy Terrain Healing. And then he will swap back in Incineroar like we were talking about, which will lower our attack, but shouldn't really end up mattering. Kind of important because then CC isn't doing as much damage to Ogerpon, but not the end of the world here. I go for Taunt into Ogerpon. And then I think Detect is probably going to be the better of the plays. He has a couple options here. I think that Detect is going to be the safest option, right? So we have Taunt into Ogerpon and Protect. He can go for Fake Out plus attacking. He can go for a KO onto Indeedee, onto Flutter Mane here and Spiky Shield. So I think taunting and detecting just keeps our options really good. And limits his options as well, just because then he can't protect. He gets Spiky Shield. Just puts us in a really good place overall. We will see the Detect, and then we will see the Fake Out here from Urshifu. He's kind of forced to go for reads. And then we get the Taunt off into the Ogerpon. And so now we're in just such a dream spot here, where we can double up on the Incin slot. He's going to go for Horn Leech with Flutter Mane there. But now Dragonite has a really easy swap into swap here. And the game is essentially locked here, because now we can go for Surging Strikes and Aerial Ace into the Incineroar slot, which pins it because it's Terra Grass. So Surging Strikes plus Aerial Ace, and the Incineroar pins that slot. If he swaps Indeedee in, then Surging Strikes will go first, KOing the Indeedee, and then Aerial Ace hits the Ogerpon, which is going to be very bad for him. Additionally, I think we should be Terra Stealing here. And then I think that's just kind of game over. I'm not really sure why I'm hovering the Outrage. I think I might have blocked Outrage here. I think... What was I worried about? Because he is taunted. I check. He's taunted. And there's one turn of Grassy Terrain left. Let's see. Hopefully I see that just Aerial Ace plus Surging Strikes into the Incineroar is free. Okay, I think I made it there. Terra Steel. Okay, yeah, I eventually got there. I thought that's what the play I went for is, but I know at some point, maybe it was game 2, I went for Outrage. But yeah, essentially, kind of what I just described happens, where I get to click Terra Steel here, and then I get to Surging Strikes the Incin. He's kind of forced to swap or Terra. Either way, he's probably going to end up losing. His out here now is to go for Ivy Cudgel, Terra, Ivy Cudgel crit on the Incin. Even then, I think he's just in a really weird spot, just because I still have Rillaboom in the back. I think that's why I was kind of considering Outrage. It's just if he Surge Strikes the Indeedee there, Outrage is gonna quickly sweep the game, but if he gets the Terra IV Cudgel crit and it KOs, then we're in a weird spot where if it's not getting a 2-hit KO, it becomes very bad for us. Because then he can start dealing damage because our Rillaboom is still very low, and then it becomes a quick 2v1 of Incineroar and Ogerpon versus Dragonite, which should still be in our favor, but can definitely play out in some awkward scenarios since will soon be untaunted here. Which makes sense why I want to go for Outrage. And I think, actually, yeah. I think after I locked this, I was like, dang, I think I should have gone for Outrage. Because if I Surge Strike Incineroar into Terras, Outrage is probably going to KO Ogerpon, or it KOs Incineroar, and then we're still in a good spot regardless. But I don't think Airlace is too bad considering everything. He's going to end up going for Horn Leech. Just kind of went for a read there, which makes sense, to be honest, right? He's kind of in a really spot. He's in a spot where he's down a lot. I don't think the play is terrible. Because at this point, he kind of has to go for reads. The Ogerpon should still be taunted, so now it's a nice Aerial Ace plus a Detect or Swap here from Urshifu. Oh, and he is actually, Terrain is up, so I can Surge Strikes into the Incineroar and Aerial Ace into the Ogerpon there freely. So yeah, we'll end up winning game 1, which is really important in a matchup like this where I feel like I'm down, is getting that game 1 is such a huge momentum in my favor. Just because now I have game 2 and 3 to play with, or game 2 he can adapt, and then I can adapt to his adaptation. We can kind of go from there. So yeah, I'm just gonna skip ahead again just because there's no like commentary. I think go back here then kind of talk about some stuff after the matches. In the moment, and even now, I kind of realized that I need to play a bit more cleaner, right? Especially with that turn where I would have just lost if I didn't Terra Steel Urshifu. I ended up Terra Stealing it in the end anyways. I think holding on to the Terra for too long in this matchup can be detrimental. Especially after I realized that he's going to be playing towards like this instant Ogerpon setup. We kind of don't need to save the Terra. The reason why I was also kind of scared to Terra the Urshifu was because of his possible Urshifu in the back. Don't want to be eating Surge and Strikes neutrally from him. So yeah, I think going into the game 2, should expect Ogerpon plus Iron Crown lead from him to counter Flutter Mane Urshifu, and that we just have to play a lot more cleanly overall. So yeah, let's get into game 2 here. All right. So we'll see Flutter Mane Urshifu versus Crown and Ogerpon. And I think, like I said, this was a very obvious adaptation. I think something that I should have done was maybe not fully counter-led for this lead, but given more thought to this lead. Just because the Flutter Mane was really annoying, and the fact that I didn't have redirection instantly. The Thunder Wave kind of put a wrench in his plans with the Iron Crown. And with Ogerpon, he opens up a lot of, I wouldn't say mind games, because when you think about them, they're more simple than they may come off, but a lot of options where I can play myself out of the obvious plays in this scenario, and I'll describe them shortly. We see both the boosters here activate, and so now I know I'm in a really weird spot, and I'm on the back foot as Lees go. He can, the main plays that I'm worried about, we know that Tachyon Cutter won't KO Flutter Mane. And I know I have to get some form of speed control down on this Iron Crown. But the problem is he can protect and go for Terra Cudgel on my Flutter Mane. And that's really, really bad. He can also go for Protect on Ogerpon and Calm Mind. And if he does something like that, then if I try to taunt the Ogerpon, it won't work. And if I'm clicking Surging Strikes, then he can go for a simple Follow Me Calm Mind to start getting the Iron Crown rolling, which I think is his most obvious play. And I think I just overthought it here, is that Fede is obviously a good player, and he is down a game. And I think from his perspective, it is not wise to completely risk the game on a turn 1 read. It makes little sense in the whole grand scheme of things, because if he gets it wrong, he's down a game already and things will quickly spiral to him losing. So it makes more sense that he'll play safe, and there's very little counterplay that I get ahead of him this turn if he just goes for Follow Me Calm Mind. The best play I can probably hope for is Taunt Close Combat, and then that leads to another awkward turn the next turn, where once again I still don't really have any speed control down. He has a Calm Mind up, and then he has pressure with Expanding Force on both my Pokemon. He has pressure with Tachyon Cutter into my Fluttermane, which is kind of a very huge piece for me. He let it live for a long time last set, and I think that he'll try to get down quickly here. And that's what I immediately think of is Taunt the Ogerpon. But then, as I said, as I had to previously, where I click moves, go back, I run through all the lines in my head, and I was thinking about the plays that he had where he could go for Protect, Terra, Ivy Cudgel onto my Fluttermane, and then Protect, Calm Mind, or Spiky Shield, Calm Mind, or Spiky Shield, Expanding Force. Additionally, he can just swap NDD in and go for Expanding Force off the rip as well. So yeah, given this lead, I'm on the back foot a lot. And I lock Icy Wind plus Surging Strikes. And I think that's a mistake. I think at this point, I need to pivot heavily. The only way I can slow down this Iron Crown from getting, from going absolutely crazy, is if we go for Icy Wind plus a swap into Dragonite here. And then we can go for another Icy Wind and then an Aerial Ace or an Outrage. And then from that spot, if Outrage KOs Ogerpon, we can cycle to Rillaboom and play from there. And then we still have the Urshifu in the back. I think this play is just almost never correct. If we were going to go for, I think Surging Strikes is just bad. I think if you're going to go for anything, maybe Icy Wind plus Close Combat into the Iron Crown slot, because then we're at least getting something if he goes for the Ivy Cudgel play, Terra Ivy Cudgel. We at least get damage on the Iron Crown, right? And that would be the most neutral play here if I'm just trying to stay in with Urshifu. So yeah, I think the Terra Steel makes sense. Just kind of the play that he has where he can swap a DD and go for Expanding Force. Or he can just go for Expanding Force into my Urshifu on turn 1. Obviously, I'll just skip ahead through Terra here. He ends up clicking the safe play that we talked about, where he kind of has no reason not to. It just gives him too much value, and I can play myself out of a lot of situations like this, where I go for Icy Wind plus Surging Strikes here, where I get very small chip. I'm not really doing anything. And then I heal the chip back on the Ogerpon anyways, and he gets a Calm Mind off. So now Tachyon Cutter's doing huge damage into... it KOs the Fluttermane, and he has pressure to swap into Indeedee. And from this spot, the game is in a very, very bad spot, right? Tachyon Cutter will take me out. I can taunt the Ogerpon slot, but he can Spiky Shield through that again, which is kind of the issue. And I need so many things out of my Fluttermane, right? I need to taunt the Ogerpon. I need to get Icy Wind off on Iron Crown. I need to do so much, and it's just very hard to do all of that. It's not hard to do that. It's impossible to do all of that just because he can Tachyon Cutter Fluttermane. I think from here, the game is not impossible, but very improbable just because of how that turn 1 went. It's just very, very bad. Very, very, very bad. You kind of see I'm floundering here, and I feel very far off the back foot that I believe I end up going for... Yeah, taunt, calling the DD swap, and then Surging Strikes again, which is very bad. I didn't think he would click Follow Me with Ogerpon here, just because I feel like that he would double the Flutter Mane slot just in case I had something swapping in to take it, right? Like the Dragonite. So yeah, he'll Tachyon Cutter, Flutter Mane here. It goes down. And then we will see here the Ogerpon. Well, I get my Urshifu will move next with Surgeon Strikes here. But the main issue is that the Iron Crown's faster than the rest of our team. So even though we did get the Taunt on the Ogerpon, it's not really going to end up doing anything for us because I'm not faster. And since the Ogerpon's attacking, I'm taking too much damage. And from that point, it's really hard to win. I think retrospectively, you know, from this position, I think the best play is to go for Icy Wind and then close combat into the Iron Crown slot. And then we can bring in Rillaboom and force a mind game of Urshifu's now faster than the Crown. If he let us attack the Crown this turn, then we have options to click Fake Out plus another attacking move into the Iron Crown, which forces a lot of awkward situations here for him. But because we didn't get that Icy Wind down, it's a really big issue and going to be a reason why we end up losing this game too. So yeah, I kind of realized immediately from here that it's definitely not in the best of spots for sure. I think Icy Wind plus attacking would have put us in a spot where it's at least manageable from there. I think Dragonite could have and Rillaboom have a possible chance, mainly if we force some mind games and get them right. Go for Ivy Cudgel here on the Urshifu, and unfortunately it will crit, which kind of just seals everything for me. I think after the taunt, I think maybe I should have gone Rillaboom, and then you can, like I said, force some mind games where I can go for Protect and then Wood Hammer into the Iron Crown because he's a free and DD swap. I kind of just flounder from here, and I'm mainly thinking about the next game, right? A play that I had access to was Aqua Jet into Iron Crown, and then Outrage. And it's actually a decent option. If Fede decides to keep his Ogerpon in, I think it's an out that I can 100% go for. But yeah, he's going to end up swapping in DD. So I think that maybe we either go for the out. The out I was going for here is that we protect. Outrage goes into the DD slot, gets the KO. We bring Rillaboom back in, and then we go for Fake Out Aqua Jet, and we crit the Aqua Jet from there, I believe is the idea that I wanted to go for. To try to somehow bring this game back, but even then it's I forget that it's not possible because I'm Outrage locked, so then you can't swap them on. You're stuck on the field, which was an oversight on my end. So yeah, the Expanded Verse will come out. Dragonite will live, so it's good to play these out just because now I know how much damage I'm taking, right? I know that I'm gonna take a +1 E-Force based on how much damage it did. Outrage will hit the Iron Crown here. Another issue is that off that turn on Icy Wind is that now I couldn't swap anything, right? Because the Ogerpon's now slower than everything else on my team, so then I can't take advantage of it being faster and going for the terrain control. He'll swap Ogerpon back in, and after I've just taken damage. Oh wow, something fell. Oh yeah, basically from here, I've just taken too much damage to the point where it's no longer winnable. If he has Instant in the back, which he most likely does, doesn't matter what really he has in the back. I've already burnt my Terra. Dragonite's too low. Nothing's really going to happen here. So yeah, he has a free Ivy Cudgel into Dragonite here because it's stuck into Outrage, can't swap. And then anything I'm doing into the DD, I'm taking Rocky Helmet Chip. So yeah, the game is basically over, but I think there's a few things to reflect on. Is that his main source of damage is going to be the Iron Crown. That's going to be how his team is going to operate. And the way I can beat that is by maintaining speed control, by clicking Icy Wind twice, or getting a Thunder Wave on the Iron Crown. But it is going to be very, very difficult for me to get a Thunder Wave on the Iron Crown because of the game one. I doubt that he will let me get it off. So I think from here, like I said, the Hisuian Arcanine actually is in a really good spot if I know he's bringing these. I said it was good in one scenario, and it's good if he's bringing these 4 Mons of Ogerpon, Indeedee, Incin, and Iron Crown. Because with the Intimidate turn 1, we eliminate the possibility of him going for Terra, Water, Ivy, Gudrel onto our Fluttermane. If we have Rocky Slide spread move, we force Flare. We force a Follow Me with Flare Blitz into the Iron Crown, and it's good into the Incineroar in the back because we can't get our attack lowered, and then it's also good into the Indeedee in the back, and then we can stack stuff like Rillaboom and Dragonite in the back, which are really nice. And then the main issue is that Urshifu is a Terra Hog here, and it's taking recoil damage from everything, and it's a bit awkward, but I still think it's good. I still think Hark was an option here. I think I end up playing it out just to see what his last mon is, and it ends up being Incineroar, which is all I wanted to know. And so in the team select here, I'm considering bringing the Hark mode, but it has some flaws, mainly just that Hark also forces my Terra on lead. And then I'm not doing the most damage turn 1. Like getting the Flare Blitz off on Ogerpon is still really important. But even then, Hark is actually in a really nice spot because it from there kind of forces the Terra pin on Iron Crown, right, with the Flare Blitz and the Terra Dragon. But I think about it more, and the line that I prefer is to use Dragonite as the initial attacker this time, and kind of try to brute force my way through at least one of his Pokemon, because if one of his Pokemon goes down, his options become severely limited and become a lot more telegraphed. Mainly just because, let's say if Dragonite takes an early KO on the Ogerpon, now Urshifu is in a really good spot where it can just Surging Strikes everything on the field. Right? If it takes down the Indeedee, then I have full terrain control. If it takes down the Iron Crown early, which is unlikely but possible, then the game is in a really good spot for me. If it takes down Incineroar, likewise, he has a lot fewer pivot options to take attacks, which ends up being more favorable for me. So he leads Iron Crown and Ogerpon, which is what I expected to see, and I lead Dragonite and Fluttermane. So from here, I have a couple options. I can go for a Taunt on Ogerpon and Outrage. I can click Air Lace into Ogerpon, and the Fluttermane options are basically clicking Icy Wind or Taunt. I think Thunder Wave is very bad just because I don't get value if the Ogerpon goes down, just because then he can bring in Indeedee and click Follow Me again. And if he gets the Calm Mind up, then we know that Fluttermane's going down to Tachyon Cutter. So turn 1, I think it's either just Icy Wind and some attack with Dragonite, or it's Icy Wind and then you can or Taunt and then you can attack with Dragonite as well, and kind of force some weird scenarios the turn 2 or 3, depending on if he double protects turn 1. I think another lead option that I didn't really consider is actually a Rillaboom lead, right? Rillaboom forces Fake Out pressure. If like a Rillaboom Urshifu actually forces, oddly, like a lot of pressure onto his team if he's leading Ogerpon and Iron Crown. Mainly because it forces the Indeedee onto the field to mitigate the fake out. And then conversely, I can swap the Rillaboom out to Fluttermane that same turn to keep the terrain control available, but also to get Fluttermane on the field in a situation where it's not going to be too pressured, just because it's unlikely that he'll double attack or even have a chance to KO my Rillaboom from here with attacks. Because it's a Rillaboom. You're not going to Ivy Cudgel or Tachyon Cutter or E-Force it, right? And then Fluttermane has a really safe swap, and then we're in a really good spot from there. So I think after thinking it over, I think Rillaboom Urshifu's like a very good sneaky lead that you can do once into these type of teams, where you can kind of do like a gotcha, where you go for the call that they're not going to stay in, or that they'll at least swap the Yarn Crown or the Indeedee out, and then to get terrain control, and then you can swap in Fluttermane, Terra Steel, certain tricks. But yeah, obviously here we go Flutter and Dragonite. We'll see. Oh, that's an alarm. All right, that was an alarm on my phone. But yeah, obviously see we go Dragonite, Fluttermane, and I think the best attacking option is going to be Outrage. Now, Outrage, while it isn't the most consistent, puts immense pressure on both of his slots here. Right? I think it's very likely he's going to double protect turn 1. So that means that Aerial Ace won't be too good, just because then he can tear Ogerpon, or he can swap in Indeedee immediately. Outrage, at least for the first turn, it's either going to take out Ogerpon, it's going to force the Indeedee in, and it can take out Indeedee if he wants to go for that, or it's going to do half to Iron Crown's HP, and if we get the Icy Wind off, then we are in a really good spot. The Icy Wind additionally puts a lot of pressure, because Icy Wind plus Outrage onto Ogerpon is a KO. And I don't imagine that Fede would want to play a 50-50 for the game turn 1, essentially. I'm risking it, but the risk is the fact that I don't think that he's going to want to take the risk, if that makes sense. Is kind of what I'm getting at, right? Because if I Icy Wind and Outrage Outrage hits the Ogerpon, then I'm in just an incredible spot. Even though he has Terra Fairy and Indeedee in the back and click Follow Me, I just need another Icy Wind onto the Iron Crown, and then I'm faster than everything. I would have Rillaboom in the back for terrain control, right? I force like weird mind games where I can go for Thunder Wave if he wants to swap the last Mon in to keep the terrain control. I have Taunt available. I can Terra Grass to take hits with Fluttermane, and I'm in just such a good spot, right? So that's what I mean, is just like, I don't think he's going to want to take the risk of a 50% chance to win the game off turn 1, or yeah, I guess turn 2 here. So that's why I go for Icy Wind Outrage. So yeah, we'll hit the Ogerpon and take some recoil damage here, which now could make +1 E-Force a roll to kill Dragonite, because we saw that we lived on 24 last time and we took 22 damage, but should be fine here. So I kind of all in here on the fact that he will swap the Ogerpon out, or at least won't click Follow Me. And I think that's a fair assessment to make, which is kind of why you're going to see the Thunder Wave play here, is because if he goes for Follow Me, Icy Wind Outrage, like we said, KOs his Ogerpon. And then from there, he has Iron Crown and Indeedee. But then I can go for another Icy Wind and an Outrage. And then he's in a weird spot where he can go for Protect Trick Room. But then, like I said, I still have terrain control advantage. And then Dragonite, would stall out of its Outrage turns. I can swap Rillaboom in and then Terra Grass my Fluttermane, go from there, and have a lot more options to stop the Trick Room turns. So I don't think he'll go for Follow Me. I think he'll either attack with Ogerpon, or I think he'll swap with Indeedee. And if that's the case, then I think Thunder Wave gives me the most value on Iron Crown overall. Just because now we don't have to click Icy Wind the next turn. Yeah, we don't have to click Icy Wind that next turn. And then that leaves us free to go for a taunt or something like that. And then even if he does click Follow Me and Thunderwave and Outrage go into the Ogre Pawn, and he gets a Calm Mind set up, it's not the worst thing in the world from there. Because like I said, we can swap Rillaboom and take the terrain control, or we can Terra Grass. So yeah. Gonna skip ahead here. So yeah, we'll see the Ogre Pawn swap. And then Indeedee will come in here, as we predicted. And the main idea that I think he's trying to get here is that if it hits the Iron Crown, he can do the Terra Fairy, Follow Me, something like that. We're going to Thunder Wave the Iron Crown here, which is going to be very good for us. And then we will go... It's actually going to get full paired first, which is going to end up in our favor. I'm not really sure what he went for here, just because we don't have his POV. If he went for Calm Mind, I think we're in an okay spot. If you went for Tachyon Cutter, we're still fine. And if you went for E-Force, I think E-Force maybe might be a roll to kill Flutter Mane after a second one. But then even then we can swap out to Rillaboom. So yeah. We will Outrage the Indeedee here, and we'll end up getting the KO. Now, if he's max defense, max HP, it's about a 56, I think it's 56.25% chance of the KO. So I'm not sure his spread, obviously, but overall the odds still should be in our favor. And then even from there, if it doesn't get the KO, right, we can go for Moonblast into the Indeedee slot and then another Outrage. So I think it's technically, I don't even know if it's better or worse for him for it to KO. Kind of just depends, I guess. Yeah, we end up getting the KO. Now he's going to send an Ogre Pawn here. And we are locked into Outrage. So, Iron Crown doesn't have a KO onto Flutter Mane. And it probably doesn't have a KO onto Dragonite here with the E-Force. I'll probably live on low HP. So, with Flutter Mane, I think I have essentially a couple options. I can swap Rillaboom now that I have terrain control and I'm faster than Iron Crown, which I don't think is horrible. Or I can go for, it's kind of annoying me that it's see-through, or I can go for Taunt onto Ogre Pawn, making it easier for my Urshifu to sweep the endgame. Or I can go for Thunder Wave on the Ogre Pawn as well. I believe what I would go for is Taunt to try to make the endgame easier for Ogre Pawn here. I actually go for Thunder Wave. Wow, that is very greedy. That's the if I had to redo it, I definitely would not go for Thunder Wave here. I think if I wanted the speed control, maybe Icy Wind would be better. Just because Outrage maybe is a roll to a KO Iron Crown, so then we get the speed control. We lower the Iron Crown just by a little bit. Maybe gets it a 2 KO on Outrage. Plus Thunder Wave can miss more. So it's definitely a play I'm not too fond of. I think just in the moment, Fede was tilting very hard, and I thought that another Thunder Wave will kind of basically just send him over the deep end, which was my mindset there, which definitely shouldn't be something I was playing into at this point, just because at this point in the match, I'm in such a commanding position that I don't think I need to be doing stuff like that. I kind of just need to keep the game rolling and try to get into my favor. So I think swapping to Rillaboom or going for Icy Winds is just a lot better here, mainly because he's just going to click Spiky Shield. And then the Thunder Wave is going to hit into his Spiky Shield. And if his Iron Crown gets to attack, we can get severely punished here. He'll end up getting paralyzed. Again, crucially as well, that we'll see that we should have gone for Icy Wind, because last turn as well, we realized our Dragonite is not going to be faster than his Iron Crown after the paralysis, right? So we should have gone for Icy Wind, I think, every single time, because that lowers the Ogre Pawn. It chips down the Iron Crown, and it makes it slower than our Dragonite. So yeah, I think every single time I just should have gone for Icy Wind plus Outrage. Or I guess can't really click Outrage. I'm stuck into it. But yeah, we'll see that it does way more than half. So we're getting that to a KO there. Again, I think that we just need to click Icy Wind, Icy Wind, Icy Wind here. But like I said, just in the moment, I think that I thought Thunder Wave would just be the best option, just because, like I said, you know, after the second pair, you know, Fede was again making he was very obviously tilted. He pushed back in his seat and stuff like that. So I was kind of playing towards that. Expanding Force here. We'll put our Dragonite low. Doesn't get the KO like we said. Outrage, we're going to get decent luck here, depending on... I'm not sure if Outrage would have KO'd the Ogerpon. More importantly, after the second Outrage, we didn't get confused, which ends up being very nice for us. I think either slot is going down, especially if I'm clicking Icy Wind. I should have clicked Icy Wind, because then it makes Ogerpon more likely to get KO'd if he's like max HP, max Impish. So I think this turn, every single time, just should have clicked Icy Wind. Always, right? So yeah, now Dragonite will be confused, guaranteed confusion. Ogerpon's gonna get like a paralysis, and he was kind of sent over the edge by this, which understandably so. Basically, he just played back-to-back rounds where he got Thunder Waved, and I think anyone would be upset from this. And the game is basically just over from here. I taunt the Ogerpon, swap Dragonite out to Rillaboom. The idea is that we can taunt Ogerpon, and then it can't redirect anything for Urshifu. And if it's taunted, it can't Spiky Shield. And then if it can't Spiky Shield, then Outrage is free for Dragonite to click as well. So we taunt here. I think even if he goes for like a super hard call and goes for Flare Blitz into the Dragonite slot and Ivy Cudgel into the Flutter Mane, we're still going to end up be fine. He'll go for Knockoff, which I think is fair. Would knock off my Mystic Water if I was swapping an Urshifu, which I think ends up being a safer swap more often than not, just because Fake Out is very valuable. Then we'll swap Dragonite back in here, just because, like I said, we have a free Outrage. We have a free Fake Out Outrage, actually. Since Ogerpon is taunted, we can Fake Out Incineroar, click Outrage. Ogerpon's not really going to be doing too much damage here. And then Outrage, Fake Out Outrage will kill Incineroar, and then Outrage into the Ogerpon should end up taking the KO. And then from there, we still have Terra available, and then Terra Steel, Urshifu should be able to take out the Ogerpon. So yeah, Fake Out Outrage into the Incineroar, we end up getting the KO. And then we'll see that once again, the Ogerpon is not going to be able to move because of the paralysis. Obviously, I don't think it mattered just because the game was over from there, but definitely very tilting for my opponent, obviously. And then he'll cancel the battle. So I think in a negative matchup like that, I did a lot of things right, but I also did a lot of things wrong. I think some of the things I did wrong was predicated on the fact that I didn't have a lot of sleep. And then I was playing towards stuff that I maybe shouldn't have been, which was a lot of hacks, right? I think the lead choice on my end, game one, was fine, just to try to suss out what he wanted to do. And I think that the turn one just ended up being very beneficial. But then, you know, minor small stuff can end up just costing the game. Like if I didn't get the para and I didn't get the stuff I needed, and because I didn't Terra Steel or Urshifu, I realistically could have lost this game just on the spot instantly. And then even some very small micro stuff here that I realized after the fact, or even realized in the set as well, is that this turn I should be going for Outrage because the Ogerpon was taunted. Outrage is likely to kill either, and since Urshifu is moving first, Surge Strikes and Incin, Outrage is going to kill either slot. Dragonite's at a really healthy, I think, actually full HP. Let me go back here. DD comes out. Yeah, Dragonite's full HP here. It should have just been Outrage every single time. I think, like I was talking previously, the out was if he gets a Terra Ivy Cudgel crit on my Urshifu, then it becomes really awkward from there. I think the game two, I kind of just overthought. I think it's important to sometimes look at it from your opponent's perspective, because there's a lot of scary things like I talked about where you can go for the Terra Ivy Cudgel into the Flutter Mane, but you know he's down a game. It doesn't make sense for him to risk it all. I think the follow me plus calm is just very, very obvious. And then the game three, I think I actually sequenced this kind of well, right? Because I expected him to go for the double protect, and that's why I went for the Icy Wind instead of the Thunder Wave turn one. I Icy Winded, because if he doesn't protect, then I'm in a fine spot regardless, right? If he does protect, then he sees what I'm trying to go for, and I make the read that he's just not going to stay in with Ogerpon, or he's going to swap, or he's not going to stay in, or he's not going to follow me, which allows me to get the Thunder Wave on the Iron Crown, which ends up proving to be very, very pivotal because he gets paralyzed twice on the Iron Crown. But then I think I made some more small mistakes here that I shouldn't have done. Like I said, I get lucky on the targeting with Outrage. Get lucky that it's a 2-turn. And I should have been clicking Icy Wind in the first place, instead of going for another Thunder Wave on the Ogerpon. And then this turn, I doubled down on that for some reason as well, and click Thunder Wave again when I should just be clicking Icy Wind every single time. But then, yeah, after the Iron Crown goes down, like, the game's basically just over, and I played out nicely from there. But yeah, I think overall just shows like that, you know, even in your wins, there's still stuff that you could fix, that you can get better. Obviously, a lot of the stuff here was easier to point out, but then there was even smaller stuff, like I said, like how I should have gone for Outrage at the end of game 1. But yeah, kind of just like off the cuff type of VOD review thing, just explaining how my thought process, at least going through each game when I see the team preview, the turn 1, and just kind of how the game branches off from there. Just want to say, you know, end off with if you made it this far, appreciate it a lot. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And GG's to Fede. I'm really excited for EUIC here. I'm probably end up running a somewhat similar team. So I think that reviewing stuff like this is very important to try to get better. And so yeah, I'm not sure when this video got posted, but it will get posted sometimes before EUIC. So yeah, wish me the best luck. Thank you for watching. Peace.